Let's now get into some discussion questions about last night's Republican debate, the final Republican primary debate of 2015. I'm here with Ben Dixon from the Benjamin Dixon Show. Let's go around. Lewis, you first. Did anyone make an impact in your mind that will have any effect on the dynamics of this race?
I mean, this is kind of like the last stand for many of these people. It's do or die. You have to make an impact, or you're just going to be remain obscure and irrelevant. So I think people were trying pretty hard. I think Carly Fiorina was trying pretty hard, but I think she did make some good points.
Yeah, I just don't think it's going to matter.
Okay, it might not matter. Okay, so if we're talking about does any of it matter, I don't think anyone who was already irrelevant up to this point did anything that is going to give them any type of boost. So I think we're still talking about the front runners here. I think Carson, I guess we'll get to the people who did poorly after.
Yeah. Okay, Ben, did anyone stand out and do really well in a way that will impact the race?
In terms of impact, no. Rand Paul stood out in terms of the only reasonable person up there. But I don't think it's sufficient enough to give him a bump.
I agree. I think that Rand Paul did the best in this debate. I don't think Marco Rubio did poorly, and he's been rising in the polls, but I don't know that he really did enough to drastically change this race. Now, did anybody bomb? Jeb Bush absolutely bombed in my mind, in the sense that the opportunities he was given, he did almost nothing with. The biggest applause lines were where he basically just criticized Democrats, which at this point I don't think is going to help you win a Republican primary. And I think Ben Carson did not do well at all in this debate. He has been trailing off in the polls from second place down to fourth place, I believe, at this point. And I think he did not help himself either.
Yeah, I think Ben Carson definitely is going to see a drop in his polls. Ted Cruz is going to solidly replace him. Marco Rubio might challenge him a little bit more. But I think Marco Rubio, of all people, missed an opportunity to actually go ahead in the polls, to move up in the polls. And then one of the things that stood out the most was Jeb Bush not being able to go the distance with his criticism.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to go toe-to-toe with Trump, you do not back down when he tells you to be quiet.
Absolutely. That was he seemed sort of feeble, and it's horrible that the Republican debates are basically jousting matches.
Exactly.
That's what they are, and there's a certain way that you win or lose that. Lewis, did anyone bomb in your mind?
Well, this is funny. We're talking. It's memorable when people underperform and when they say things that are kind of dumb or don't make sense, or they're not tough. But Chris Christie was just a total non-factor that we don't even remember him. We have no highlights to play from anything he said.
I know he was a prosecutor. He talked about being a prosecutor.
Every time he answered a question, it was starting off with something like with some type of bashing of Obama and Hillary.
Right.
And that seemed like that was his entire strategy. I'm not really sure what he was going for, but it was just completely pathetic.
Last thing I want to talk about, Ben, you've talked about you are a more religious progressive. You're a progressive Christian. I don't know exactly how you describe yourself. When you see the right almost exclusively pander to Christians as a progressive, does it do anything for you to say, well, I really like the religious talk from the right, so I'd consider voting for one of these people? Or is it not really a factor?
No, absolutely not. No, their religious talk is just smoke, right? It's just it's actually part of their propaganda machine. So none of their religiosity actually touches me at all. It actually angers me. And most progressive Christians, when we see the religious right, it angers us to the point where we have to take a step back and say, are we really in the same faith as these imbeciles? So,
and is part of it that they don't see the separation of church and state that our Constitution says should be there?
Definitely. No, it's the hypocrisy. It's the perverted focus on people's sexuality and paying no attention to any other type of morality. Let's forget about economic justice and social justice. It's just this laser-like focus on sex, and so not only that, but then the conflation of the church and state and just completely ignoring people's freedom to actually live without religion, just as much freedom as we have to live with religion.
We're going to talk about this more. We'll take a quick break and be back with Patriot Mail after this.